7 million years ago, in the dense forests of Africa, death came silently. No roar, no warning, just coils wrapping tighter and tighter until breathing stopped. This is the story of the apex predator that shaped our ancestors' greatest fear, and why we still fear snakes today. The world is unrecognizable. Africa's climate is shifting. Dense rainforests still dominate, but patches of grassland are beginning to spread. No humans exist, not yet, but our ancestors do. Small, tree-dwelling primates, barely 3 feet tall, swing through the canopy, feeding on fruits, insects, and leaves. They're agile, quick, but fragile. These early hominids haven't learned to walk upright. They haven't discovered fire. They have no tools. And in these forests, they are prey. The apex predator of this world isn't a lion. It isn't a leopard. It's something far more patient, far more lethal. A snake. The ancestors of modern African rock pythons, but far, far larger. Stretching over 20 feet long, weighing 300 pounds or more. Silent hunters, ambush specialists. They don't chase, they wait. Coiled in the shadows of trees, motionless for hours, days even. And when a primate passes, unaware, distracted, the strike is instant. No venom, just raw constricting power. The snake wraps around its victim. Every exhale tightens the grip. Every attempt to breathe pulls the coils tighter. Death doesn't come from crushing bones. It comes from suffocation. And once the prey stops moving, the snake begins the slow process of swallowing it whole. Our ancestors were the perfect size, small enough to swallow, large enough to be worth the hunt. Fossil sites from this era show puncture marks on primate bones, marks consistent with constrictor attacks. Paleontologists have found primate remains inside fossilized snake middens, the feeding sites these giants used. One study from 2009 identified primate vertebrae with compression fractures, exactly what happens when a python squeezes. These snakes didn't just hunt primates, they specialized in them. How do we know this? The fossil record tells us. In the Tugen Hills of Kenya, dated to 6 to 7 million years ago, paleontologists discovered primate fossils with distinctive damage patterns. Compression fractures on ribs, tooth marks absent, no tearing, just pressure. The smoking gun? Snake vertebrae found in the same sediment layers. Massive vertebrae, far larger than any modern African python. Dr. Michelle Drape's study in 2009 in the Journal of Human Evolution analyzed these sites. Her conclusion: constrictors were a primary predator of early hominids. But the evidence goes deeper. Primatologist Lynn Isbell proposed the snake detection theory in 2006. Her research found that primates, uniquely among mammals, have specialized brain regions for detecting snakes. We can spot a snake faster than any other threat, faster than a lion, faster than a spider. Why? Because for millions of years, the primates that couldn't detect snakes didn't survive. Evolution wired our brains for snake fear. Even today, humans who've never seen a snake in person will instinctively recoil from images of them. That's not learned, that's inherited. 7 million years of survival pressure encoded in our DNA. So how did our ancestors survive? They couldn't run. These snakes struck from ambush. By the time you saw it, it was too late. They couldn't fight. A 300-pound constrictor is pure muscle. No primate could break free. But they could adapt. First, group vigilance. Primates began moving in larger social groups. More eyes meant better detection. One individual spots the coiled shape in the shadows, the entire group flees. Alarm calls evolved. Specific vocalizations for snake versus eagle versus leopard. Even today, vervet monkeys have 3 distinct alarm calls, one for aerial predators, one for ground predators, and one, uniquely, for snakes. That's a 7-million-year-old survival adaptation. Second, they changed their behavior. Fossils from this period show a shift in primate anatomy. Longer legs, stronger hind limbs. Why? To spend more time on the ground. Open grasslands were expanding, and in the grasslands, snakes had fewer ambush points. Early hominids began testing life outside the forest. It was dangerous. New predators awaited, but it was less dangerous than the serpents in the trees. This pressure, this evolutionary trade-off, may have been one of the forces that pushed our ancestors toward bipedalism. Standing upright gave a better view of the ground, better detection of coiled threats. Third, they developed tools. Not yet, not at 7 million years ago, but the need was planted. A stick to probe the ground, a rock to strike a coiled shape. These innovations were still millions of years away. But the evolutionary pressure, the arms race between primate and predator, was already shaping what we would become. By 4 million years ago, something changed. The forests continued to shrink. Grasslands expanded, and the giant constrictors, specialized for ambush in dense vegetation, began to decline. Smaller snakes and faster snakes adapted, but the giants, they couldn't compete in open terrain. Leopards, hyenas, and early saber-toothed cats moved into the predator void. And our ancestors, they kept walking upright, kept moving into the open, kept adapting. The snakes didn't disappear entirely. Even today, pythons and boas hunt primates, but we evolved past them. We learned to see them, to avoid them, to fear them, and eventually, much later, to kill them. That primal fear you feel when you see a snake coiled in the grass? That's not irrational. That's 7 million years of survival instinct. The whisper of ancestors who learned to look twice before stepping into the shadows. This is the story of how a silent predator shaped the evolution of the human brain. How a creature that couldn't roar, couldn't chase, and couldn't tear still became one of the most dangerous threats our ancestors ever faced. And how we survived by learning to see what was hidden. If you want to see more stories from Deep Time, stories of survival, adaptation, and the evolutionary forces that made us human, subscribe to Ancestors Whispers. Next, we'll explore life 4 million years ago, when Lucy's species crossed rivers filled with crocodiles. The link is in the description. Thanks for watching, and remember, always look twice before stepping into the shadows.